Good evening, everyone. I'm Katie Couric, and we've all heard, of course, of internet trolls. Some of us, in fact, may have been harassed by one. But the word trolling, I don't think, can't begin to describe the damage they can do. They can threaten to rape and kill you. They can put your most personal information online for the world to see. And the worst part is, in most cases, they get away with it scot-free. So joining me now are four incredible women who are pushing for change. Anita Sarkeesian is the executive editor of Feminist Frequency, a video web series that explores how women are represented in popular culture. Kamala Harris is California's Attorney General. Her office is leading the nation's fight against online abuse.
Thank you.
Ashley Judd is an actress and activist who's fighting to bring cyber harassers to justice. And Emily Bazelon is a writer for the New York Times Magazine who's been covering this topic extensively. So why don't we give them all a round of applause.
And by the way, that's Katie Couric.
So let's start with Anita. Anita, I know that this experience for you started when you launched a Kickstarter campaign back in 2012 to examine how women are portrayed in video games. And it was a very successful Kickstarter campaign, by the way, but it did open the floodgates for incredibly nasty and profane comments and from many people, or some people in the video game community. Were you shocked by what you read, and why do you think you got such a violent reaction?
Absolutely. So I've been a feminist and a woman on the internet for a while, so I'm not immune to the jokes involving sandwiches and kitchens, which I got all the time. But when the Kickstarter happened, it brought the harassment to a whole nother level. I was inundated by a attacked by a cyber mob. And I think part of the reason that they did that was because there's this sense of entitlement that some male gamers have to gaming as a male-dominated space. And so someone coming in and saying, hey, or specifically, I should say, a woman coming in and saying, hey, I'm a gamer, and I think stuff is kind of messed up here, right? That these representations aren't really great, so let's have a conversation. Let's try to change things and make it better for everyone who games. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that at all.
And it affected you, Anita, in a very profound way in your day-to-day life and in sort of just things that you did on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, so to give you an idea of what the harassment looks like, it's been going on for 3 years nonstop, and it's everything from sexist and racist slurs all over all of my social media accounts on a daily basis, threats to my life, specifically sexualized violent threats as well. There are bomb threats and death threats at events that I attend or that I speak at. They attempt to dox me, which is to collect and publicly distribute my personal information, like a home address and phone number, try to hack into my email and social media sites, try to knock my website offline. I could go on for days about all the different strategies, and this is ongoing. And so understandably, after or throughout this period of 3 years nonstop, you become hyper-vigilant. And I don't like to use the word paranoid because there's a sense of irrationality to that word. But there's nothing irrational about my fear. The hypervigilance and the way that it has changed my existence, both professionally and personally, is incredible, right? So I am very conscious of the events that I do. Like, I will be harassed nonstop during this live stream. Places that I go, events that I'm at, there's always security around me now. I'm very conscious of being in coffee shops and restaurants and being recognized. Online, I have to be hypervigilant, so I don't get to just joke around on the internet. I don't get to just say what I think, because every single thing I do is so highly scrutinized.
And in fact, you talked about, Anita, when we talked the last couple of days, about how when men are harassed online, it's a very different phenomenon than women are. And in fact, it is kind of this mob mentality. So can you describe that and how it's affected you?
Well, so the studies have shown that women are overwhelmingly the targets of online harassment, and the way that men and women, generally speaking, are harassed is pretty different. So specifically, when white men are harassed, it is name-calling, it's embarrassment, it's usually one-off, and they are usually made fun of for being like a woman. because there's nothing worse than being like a woman, right? So, and being gay, which is a part of that patriarchy spectrum. So they get called pussy, they get called mangina, they get called faggot. And also white knight is a big internet term these days, which means that if a man is supporting women and cares about women, then they obviously are just doing it to get laid, because heaven forbid men actually want to eradicate patriarchy in any way. When women are harassed, we are sent threats of sexual violence, we are sexually harassed, and we are inundated by mobs, and it's sustained for periods of time.
In fact, you call it dogpiling, right?
Yeah, a cyber mob or dogpiling is the same kind of idea. It's when a dominant group with a shared worldview comes together to shame and harass and discredit women, to silence and discredit our work. And it takes over your entire social media life in every capacity.
We'll talk about what social media platforms are doing or not doing in a moment. That by and large still, and I know, Anita, that the police didn't even know what Twitter was when you talked to them, right?
Yes. Well, so there's been stories of women who have gone to report Twitter threats, and the police just show up going, "What's Twitter?" I have definitely had to explain what Twitter is and how it works to law enforcement on both local and federal levels. Which is just embarrassing. In San Francisco, they know what Twitter is because they have to, like, the building is there, but that's kind of the extent of it.
It's a big building.
Yeah. But I've had police tell me, they're like, well, why don't you just stop doing what you're doing if you're being threatened? Like, how is that an appropriate response when someone is being threatened, their family is being threatened? And so you're talking about how women need to come forward, and I agree, from my engagement with law enforcement now, they're like, it's easier to prosecute if you respond quickly because you have to prove that they were fearful for their lives. But why would women do that, right? Because they get ridiculed, they get not taken seriously. I didn't actually go to the police until I was kind of forced to. There was a bomb threat at a very high-profile event that I was at, and they went to the police, which then put me in the system. But I was like, what, I'm gonna walk to the local police station with like tweets and posts on message boards?
Yeah.
And there's no way there's no way that I believed that they would take me seriously. And I think a lot of women feel that same way.
So, Kamala, what do we do to eradicate the victim blaming that often ensues when people do complain? See someone being abusive, they can also report.
And I've actually seen Twitter in this conversation with us, and I mean, yes, I'm the top cop of the state, but
they say the right things.
But they actually are following through, and so we want to give them credit and encourage them to also do better. And I think that there is a divide in terms of perception and experience, and we're closing that divide. But I do see progress being made, and Twitter and Facebook and actually Microsoft have been three of the most significant leaders in the conversation.
Because I'm really sick of YouTube crap.
Yeah.
But I want to piggyback on that because I don't want to be like, yay, Twitter, but I have been impressed with what the steps that they're taking. It's late in the game, but I'm impressed with what they're doing. And I think that there's a lot more that they need to do, but I do have a little bit of hope, right? Like about a year ago, it would take them 6 months to respond to a threat, and I'd get a message being like, oh, well, this isn't against our policies. Right. I reported a threat a week ago, and I got a response in 20 minutes. That's something. The reporting function, I mean, don't clap for Twitter. They're actually starting to do their job. They don't need a cookie for that. You can clap for that. But, you know, like, I feel like the social media sites is one piece of it. The legislation is another piece of it. And all of these things work together to create a cultural shift. You know, like, I actually don't like the title of this panel because I think the word trolls is kind of a problem. I think it reinforces the juvenileness of all of this, right? I think that comments like, don't feed the trolls, don't read the comments, get over it, grow tougher skin, it's just boys being boys, it's just the internet. All of these comments work to make online harassment normal. It's just how it is, right? But it's not just how it is, and we don't have to accept it, and none of us should have to jettison our humanity in order to participate, because that's ultimately what those comments are saying.
That's right.